It's part of a whole series published by Amberley, where they do various towns and cities in 50 buildings. And my co-author, Paul, who's been a good friend for many years, had done Manchester in 50 buildings with another colleague of mine, Deborah. And we were discussing it one night on Facebook. And I was saying, yeah, Manchester is all very well, but poor old Salford always gets overlooked and overshadowed. And actually, I said, it's got better architecture than Manchester. So he said, well, why don't we do it then? So following day, we got a proposal together. We got together a fairly random list of about 65, 66 buildings that we could think of. We wanted to do buildings that were still standing to try to kind of capture them while they're still standing, because as you know, Salford is changing so rapidly in terms of the landscape. So we got it off to the publishers and they really liked it and they approved it, and we just started from there really. We wanted to do a real mixture of different building types and different building styles, because when people think about northern cities like Manchester and Salford, they think about all the Victorian buildings, but we wanted to show that there's way more to it than that there are buildings that are a lot older than that are also interesting, that there are buildings from lots of different other kind of architectural styles other than Victorian kind of Gothic revival that are still there and that are as interesting, if not more interesting. So I think we felt it was worthy, really, of the attention that we gave it, hopefully. The landscape here is changing very rapidly. There's lots of new buildings going up. Lots of the old ones have been lost, even in the last few months. And so when you've got that as a context, I think that is a good opportunity to say, let's take a look at the best that are left, because, in a year's time, some of them might be gone. So it felt like a really good time to do this while all this rapid change is going on, to try and encourage a bit more respect maybe for the landscape than there's been in recent years.
Yeah.
It's so difficult though, isn't it? Because yes, these are great buildings, but unless you can find a new use for them in the 21st century, then what is their purpose, really?
Yeah.
So I suppose we wanted to raise those kinds of issues as well, just how difficult it can be to preserve some of these buildings if they don't have an obvious use in the 21st century then. We did think about ranking them, but that's incredibly difficult, because then you get into all kinds of subjective decision making. So we kept it pretty random. We tried to, as I say, cover a wide variety of building types. So we've got synagogues and schools and pubs and all kinds, just to have as diverse a range as possible, and from all the different parts of the city of Salford as well. So we weren't over focusing on any one particular part. What actually really started me thinking about Salford's architecture is one that ended up getting put in as an afterthought, which is Mount Chapel in Eccles. It's a really fabulous building, but unfortunately we couldn't find anything about it in order to include it, so we put it at the back as a kind of list of buildings that we could have included but didn't for some reason. I also really developed a new respect for Salford Precinct. That might sound like an odd one to pick, but it's one of the few examples of brutalism in Salford. And actually, when you look at the detail of it up close, it is really kind of interesting. And it was supposed to be part of a very ambitious big scheme. There was supposed to be hotels and all kinds of things originally in the plans that never kind of metamorphosed. So I guess it kind of reminds you just how changing and kind of temporary sometimes architectural plans can be, So but I think the one on the cover as well, Arlington House, is just definitely a personal favourite in terms of style and in terms of the way it's tucked down a street. People mightn't necessarily know it was there, which was partly why we chose to put it on the cover, so that maybe it would stop people in their tracks and they would think, oh, where's that building? Because it's not particularly recognisable. But again, it's a wonderful building to be up close to. There's so much going on in it. It's fantastic. The publisher has asked me to do a few more, but it's always a time thing, isn't it? The nice thing about this was we could do it evenings and weekends. The research wasn't particularly difficult, and because I was doing it with somebody else, it was only kind of half a job, really. I would like to do some more, but it's definitely going to be a time thing, but hopefully.